Hello, viewers, and thank you for joining us. Here, we don't just tell stories, we bring them to life. Dive with us into the depths of history, mystery, and discovery as we explore the wonders that shaped humanity. Now, we explain the Trojan War truth behind the myth.
In the heart of ancient Greece, there lived a world of gods and heroes, kings and queens, myths and mysteries. Among the countless tales born from the cradle of Western civilization, none has captured the imagination of poets, historians, and dreamers like the Trojan War. It is a story that bridges the fragile line between history and myth, a conflict that, through thousands of years old, continues to echo through the corridors of human memory. The Trojan War was not merely a war between two cities, it was a clash between pride and destiny, between divine will and human ambition. It stands as a timeless reflection of how myth and memory intertwine, creating legends that shape nations and identities long after the dust of history has settled. The story begins in the Age of Heroes, a time when the gods of Olympus still watched over humankind and sometimes interfered in their affairs. The origins of the Trojan War, as told in Greek mythology, are both romantic and tragic, rooted in divine conflict rather than political ambition. According to the myth, the war began not with a declaration of conquest, but with a golden apple. It was said that Eris, the goddess of discord, was not invited to a grand wedding feast between Peleus and the sea nymph Thetis. In her anger, she threw a golden apple into the crowd of gods with the inscription, "To the fairest." Three goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, each claimed the apple, demanding to be declared the most beautiful. To settle the dispute, Zeus appointed Paris, the prince of Troy, as the judge of their divine beauty contest. Each goddess, eager to win, offered Paris a tempting bribe. Hera promised him power and kingship. Athena offered wisdom and victory in war, while Aphrodite promised him the love of the most beautiful woman on earth, Helen of Sparta. It was Aphrodite's offer that Paris could not resist. Helen, however, was already married to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. When Paris traveled to Sparta under the guise of a diplomatic guest, he was welcomed into Menelaus's home. But Aphrodite's promise soon came to life. Helen fell in love with Paris, and the two fled together to Troy. This act of passion ignited one of the most legendary wars in mythology. Menelaus, humiliated and enraged, called upon the Greek kings and heroes who had once sworn an oath to protect Helen's marriage. Bound by honor, they united under the leadership of Agamemnon, Menelaus's brother, and the powerful king of Mycenae. Thus, 1,000 ships were said to set sail for Troy, carrying warriors like Achilles, Odysseus, Ajax, and Diomedes, all destined to become legends. The abduction of Helen is often seen as the spark of the Trojan War, but beneath this romantic surface lies a deeper reflection of human nature and divine manipulation. The ancient Greeks believed that the gods used mortals as pawns in their cosmic games, and the Trojan War became the stage upon which divine jealousy, love, and vengeance were enacted. Hera and Athena, furious at Paris for rejecting them, supported the Greeks, while Aphrodite, loyal to Paris, aided the Trojans. This divine rivalry transformed a human conflict into a cosmic struggle. Every major event of the war, every death, victory, and betrayal was seen as part of a divine design, orchestrated by immortal hands that shaped mortal fates.
As the Greeks arrived at the shores of Troy, the city stood as a fortress of unimaginable strength and beauty. Located in what is now northwestern Turkey, Troy, or Ilion as it was called, was said to be a city of gold and grandeur. Its walls, built by the gods Poseidon and Apollo, were so tall and strong that no army could breach them. The Trojans, led by King Priam, were not mere defenders but proud warriors bound by honor and family. Among them stood Hector, Priam's eldest son, the embodiment of courage and loyalty, Aeneas, a demigod destined for survival, and Paris, whose love had brought both blessing and doom to his people. On the other side stood the Greeks, the Achaeans, driven by pride, vengeance, and prophecy. Achilles, the greatest warrior of his age, stood at the heart of their strength, his divine heritage and unmatched skill making him nearly invincible. Yet even Achilles was bound by fate. His mother, Thetis, had foreseen that he would die young if he went to Troy, but live without glory if he stayed home. Achilles chose glory, sealing his destiny. The early years of the war were brutal and indecisive. Despite the Greek army's might, the walls of Troy held firm. Raids and skirmishes defined the conflict's first phase as the Greeks pillaged surrounding cities and fought to cut off Troy's allies. The Trojan War, contrary to many myths, was not a continuous siege. It was a long, drawn-out conflict that spanned a decade. During this time, the war became less about Helen and more about pride, revenge, and the unrelenting pursuit of honor. The Iliad, Homer's epic poem, captures only a small portion of the war's later years, focusing on the rage of Achilles and the tragedy that followed. Yet it is through this narrow lens that we glimpse the essence of Greek heroism and human frailty. One of the defining themes of the Trojan War is the concept of fate. The Greeks believed that destiny was inescapable, even for the gods themselves. Every hero in the war, no matter how powerful, was bound by the threads woven by the fates. Achilles knew his death awaited him, yet he sought immortality through glory. Hector fought bravely, knowing Troy would fall. Priam ruled with wisdom, yet he too could not escape the doom prophesied for his city. This fatalism gives the story its enduring power. It is not simply a tale of war, but a meditation on the human struggle against inevitability. The heroes of Troy fought not just for victory, but for remembrance, to be immortalized in song and story. Outside the realm of myth, historians and archaeologists have long debated whether the Trojan War actually happened. The first to make a significant discovery was Heinrich Schliemann in the 19th century. Inspired by Homer's epics, Schliemann excavated a site in Hisarlik, modern-day Turkey, where he found the remains of an ancient city that had been destroyed by fire. He believed he had found the real Troy. Later excavations confirmed that the site had indeed seen multiple layers of habitation and destruction, suggesting that a series of cities had been built atop one another over centuries. One of these layers, Troy 7, appeared to have been violently destroyed around 1200 BCE, aligning with the period traditionally associated with the Trojan War. Whether this destruction was caused by a Greek invasion, an internal uprising, or natural disaster remains uncertain, but the evidence hints at a historical kernel within the myth.
The Trojan War, then, might have been a real conflict embellished by centuries of storytelling. Many scholars suggest it could have been a war between Mycenaean Greeks and a wealthy Anatolian city controlling trade routes across the Aegean Sea. Over time, poets like Homer transformed this historical event into an epic filled with gods, heroes, and moral lessons. The Greeks, through their oral traditions, reshaped history into myth, ensuring that the memory of their ancestors lived on not as conquerors or victims, but as timeless figures caught between mortals and gods. This transformation from history to legend reflects humanity's desire to find meaning in the chaos of war, to believe that suffering and loss serve a greater cosmic purpose. The story of Troy also symbolizes the duality of civilization and destruction. The Greeks and Trojans were not portrayed as simple enemies, rather both sides were depicted with dignity and depth. The Iliad itself opens not with glory, but with rage. Sing, O Muse, of the wrath of Achilles. From its very first line, it reminds us that war is driven by human emotion, not divine justice. Achilles' anger against Agamemnon for taking his war prize, Briseis, led him to withdraw from battle, causing immense suffering to his own army. This conflict within the Greek camp mirrors the larger war outside Troy's walls. It reveals that the greatest battles often take place within the human heart. Through Achilles' struggle, Homer explores pride, grief, and the search for purpose in a world governed by fate. The Trojan War also gave rise to one of the most poignant human stories in literature, the encounter between Hector and Achilles. When Achilles' beloved companion Patroclus was slain by Hector, his grief turned into uncontrollable fury. In his rage, Achilles returned to the battlefield, killing Hector in single combat. Yet even in victory, he found no peace. He desecrated Hector's body, dragging it around the walls of Troy, but his vengeance brought him only emptiness. It is in this moment that the Iliad transcends myth. It becomes a reflection on the futility of rage and the humanity that even the mightiest warriors cannot escape. The war, once seen as divine, becomes profoundly human. The myths surrounding the Trojan War continue to evolve long after Homer's time. Later poets added new layers: the death of Achilles from an arrow to his heel, the cunning of Odysseus, and the deception of the Trojan horse, a symbol of both Greek ingenuity and the final downfall of Troy. But those moments belong to later parts of this story. For now, in this first stage of our journey through myth and memory, we see the seeds of conflict sown not by armies but by gods, not by strategy but by desire. The Trojan War, whether history or legend, remains a mirror to the human condition, our yearning for love, our thirst for honor, and our struggle to defy destiny, even as it pulls us inevitably toward our fate.
As the war between the Greeks and the Trojans entered its later years, the initial fury that had driven men into battle began to transform into endurance, despair, and exhaustion. The 10th year of the conflict brought with it both the weariness of endless fighting and the weight of countless losses. Yet the flame of pride and destiny burned fiercely in both camps. The Greeks still yearned for glory and revenge, while the Trojans clung to hope, believing that the favor of the gods might still preserve their golden city. The war had long ceased to be about Helen. She had become a distant symbol, a cause swallowed by the chaos of time. For most warriors, the struggle was now about survival, loyalty, and the fulfillment of prophecies that neither side could escape. The gods, watching from Olympus, continued to interfere, sometimes with amusement, sometimes with vengeance, for the Trojan War had become their battlefield as much as humanity's. The divine involvement in the war began increasingly evident as each god took sides with passion and cruelty. Hera and Athena remained steadfast allies of the Greeks, while Aphrodite, Apollo, and Ares favored the Trojans. Zeus himself, though striving to maintain balance, could not resist the pull of fate. He knew that Troy was destined to fall, yet he allowed the gods to play their roles in shaping the inevitable outcome. This divine manipulation blurred the line between justice and chaos. On the battlefield, warriors fought bravely, unaware that their lives were being tugged by invisible strings from above. The immortals, for all their power, mirrored the same flaws as mortals: jealousy, love, pride, and anger. And it was these emotions that shaped the war's cruel course. The siege of Troy dragged on, and with each passing year, both sides suffered immense loss. The Greeks, far from home, were plagued by hunger, disease, and infighting. The long absence from their homeland weakens their alliances, and disputes among the kings became frequent. Agamemnon's pride clashed constantly with Achilles' sense of honor, while Odysseus, the cunning strategist, often found himself mediating between egos as vast as the sea that had brought them there. Meanwhile, the Trojans, though still protected by their city's impenetrable walls, endured the strain of isolation. The land around Troy lay barren after years of conflict, and supplies grew scarce. Yet, within the city, the spirit of the people remained strong, sustained by the leadership of King Priam and the courage of his sons. Among them, Hector stood as Troy's greatest hope. Unlike Paris, whose actions had ignited the war, Hector embodied the true virtues of heroism: duty, loyalty, and selflessness. His humanity made him beloved by both Trojans and even respected by some of his enemies. In contrast, Achilles represented the pure essence of the heroic ideal, unmatched in strength but consumed by pride. The two men were destined to meet, their confrontation a moment that would define not only the outcome of the war, but the very soul of Greek mythology itself. The story of Achilles' withdrawal from battle is one of the most defining arcs in the Iliad.
When Agamemnon, in an act of arrogance, seized Briseis, Achilles' captive and beloved, Achilles was overcome with fury. Feeling insulted and dishonored, he refused to fight for the Greeks, retreating to his tent and praying to his mother, the sea goddess Thetis, for justice. Thetis, hearing his plea, implored Zeus to punish the Greeks so they would realize Achilles' worth. Zeus agreed, and as the great warrior sought in anger, the tide of battle turned in favor of the Trojans. Without Achilles, the Greeks faltered, and Hector led his army to victory after victory, pushing the invaders back toward their ships.
The absence of Achilles became a wound within the Greek camp. His comrades suffered heavy losses, and morale fell into despair. Among those who felt the weight of Achilles' absence most deeply was Patroclus, his closest friend and companion. Unable to watch his fellow Greeks perish, Patroclus begged Achilles to allow him to enter the battlefield wearing his armor, hoping to rally the troops and drive back the Trojans. Achilles agreed, but warned him not to pursue the enemy too far. In the heat of battle, however, Patroclus forgot caution. His courage and borrowed glory carried him all the way to the gates of Troy. There, he met Hector, who mistook him for Achilles and struck him down with fatal force. When Patroclus fell, the course of the war shifted again, for his death awakened in Achilles a rage unlike any the world had ever seen. Grief turned Achilles into a force of nature. His pain was so great that it blurred the boundary between man and God. He re-entered the battlefield not as a soldier, but as a storm. The river Scamander itself rose against him, angered by the blood he spilled. But even nature could not halt his fury. He slaughtered Trojans without mercy, seeking Hector above all. The final confrontation between Achilles and Hector remains one of the most powerful moments in all mythology, a clash not just of warriors, but of ideals. Hector, knowing he could not defeat Achilles, still faced him with courage, choosing honor over life. When Achilles killed him, he refused to grant his body the respect due to a hero. Instead, he dragged Hector's corpse behind his chariot, circling the walls of Troy in vengeance. It was an act of desecration that shocked even the gods. King Priam, stricken with grief, performed one of the most moving acts in Greek literature. Guided by Hermes, he snuck into the Greek camp under cover of night and approached Achilles to beg for his son's body. When the old king knelt before the killer of his child, Achilles' heart finally softened. The sight of Priam's sorrow reminded him of his own father, and for the first time, Achilles felt the weight of his humanity. He returned Hector's body, allowing Troy to mourn its fallen prince. In that moment, the war paused, and for a brief instant, compassion overcame vengeance. This encounter stands as one of the earliest depictions of empathy transcending violence, a theme that has resonated across millennia. Yet, the war was far from over. Even as both sides mourned, destiny continued its relentless march. The Greeks, though weary, began to seek new strategies. Odysseus, ever the master of cunning, proposed a plan that would end the stalemate once and for all. But before that infamous idea of the Trojan horse was conceived, the Greeks suffered another blow, the death of Achilles. His fall came not from a mighty warrior, but from an arrow guided by divine will. Paris, aided by Apollo, struck Achilles in his only vulnerable spot, his heel. The hero who defied fate met his destined end, proving that even the greatest are bound by mortality. His death plunged the Greek camp into sorrow, but it also reignited their determination to finish the war he had defined.
The death of Achilles marked a turning point. The Greeks, under the leadership of Odysseus and Agamemnon, resolved to bring the conflict to a close, no matter the cost. With their mightiest warrior gone, brute force could no longer secure victory. They turned instead to deceit, a weapon as powerful as any sword.
Odysseus proposed constructing a massive wooden horse, large enough to hold a group of Greek soldiers within its hollow body. The rest of the army would pretend to abandon the siege, sailing away and leaving the horse as an offering to the Trojans, a supposed symbol of their surrender. The plan was daring, even blasphemous, but desperation often breeds genius. Thus was born one of history's most enduring symbols of cunning and betrayal, the Trojan horse. Meanwhile, within the walls of Troy, the mood was mixed. The city had endured 10 long years of war. Its people were weary, yet hopeful, for with Achilles dead, it seemed the gods had finally turned their favor. When the Greeks sailed away, leaving behind the mysterious horse, the Trojans rejoiced, believing their enemies had finally given up. The citizens poured out of the gates, celebrating their survival and the apparent victory. Only a few, such as the priest Laocoon and the prophetess Cassandra, sensed danger. Laocoon famously warned, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." He hurled a spear at the horse, and for a moment, the sound of hollow wood echoed ominously. But the gods silenced doubt through deception. 2 serpents emerged from the sea and devoured Laocoon and his sons, a sign that the horse was sacred. The Trojans, interpreting this as divine approval, brought the horse into the city, sealing their fate. Night fell over Troy like a shroud. As the city slept in drunken celebration, the Greek ships that had sailed away silently returned. From within the horse, the hidden soldiers emerged, opening the gates for the returning army. In the dead of night, Troy burned. Flames devoured its temples, palaces, and homes, while the cries of the dying filled the air. The once mighty city was reduced to ashes, its golden age consumed by its own trust and pride. King Priam was slain at the altar, his sons scattered and killed, his daughters enslaved. The Greeks, victorious, yet cursed, left behind ruins and sorrow. Their victory was absolute, but it came at the cost of humanity itself. No glory could wash away the blood that had been spilled. The fall of Troy marked an end of an era, the twilight of the age of heroes. Yet even in ruin, the story did not end. Survivors carried fragments of Troy's spirit into new lands. Among them was Aeneas, the Trojan prince who, guided by the gods, escaped the burning city with his father Anchises and his son Ascanius. His journey would lead him to Italy, where his descendants, according to Roman mythology, would one day found Rome itself. Thus, from Troy's ashes, a new civilization was said to rise, linking Greek and Roman culture through mythic ancestry. The Trojan War, in this sense, became not merely a tale of destruction, but of rebirth, a myth that connected nations and shaped their collective identity.
The Greeks, too, paid dearly for their victory. The gods, angered by their cruelty and sacrilege, cursed their return journey. Many never saw their homes again. Agamemnon was murdered upon his arrival. Odysseus wandered the seas for years, and others perished in storms and shipwrecks. The war had not only destroyed Troy, but it brought ruin upon the victors as well. The moral was clear: no one defies fate or the gods without consequence. The Greeks, who had sought eternal glory, found instead eternal tragedy. Their stories would live on, but not as songs of triumph. They would become warnings, echoes of the dangers of hubris, pride, and divine wrath. The Trojan War thus stands as a mirror of human nature. It reveals the beauty and horror of mankind's pursuit of greatness. The heroes who fought were both noble and flawed. The gods who guided them were powerful, yet petty. Through the lens of this myth, we glimpse the eternal struggle between destiny and desire, between love and war, between the divine and the human. It is this tension that has kept the story alive for thousands of years. Every generation finds something of itself in the War of Troy: our ambitions, our betrayals, our longing for meaning and suffering. The walls of Troy may have fallen, but the legend remains unbroken, echoing through time as a reminder that even myths, like history, are born from the same human heart.
The ruins of Troy smoldered for days, their blackened stones and shattered gates standing as silent witnesses to the end of an age. Smoke curled into the heavens, carrying with it the last breath of a civilization that had once been the jewel of the ancient world. The ashes of its temples and palaces drifted across the Aegean winds, mingling with the salt of the sea that had brought both salvation and destruction. For the Greeks, the burning of Troy was the final act in a decade-long tragedy, yet victory tasted bitter. What had begun as a quest for honor and justice ended as a lesson in the destructive power of human pride. Even the gods who had played their part in the chaos turned away from the devastation, for what remained on the plains of Ilium was not glory, but ruin. The age of heroes was over, and from its end rose the first whispers of the modern world. The aftermath of the Trojan War was not the peace that men had imagined, but a haunting echo of loss that followed every survivor. The Greek warriors, once proud and invincible, became wanderers cursed by the very gods they had sought to please. Their journey home, known in Greek tradition as the Nostos, was filled with torment and betrayal. Agamemnon, the commander of the Greek forces, returned to Mycenae only to be murdered by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus, who sought vengeance for the sacrifice of their daughter Iphigenia years earlier. Thus, the king who had led an army to reclaim a stolen wife lost his own life to the same cycle of vengeance that had fueled the war. His death set in motion another tragic saga, the story of Orestes and Electra, who avenged their father by killing their mother, continuing the chain of blood that no mortal could escape. Odysseus, the cunning hero of Ithaca, faced perhaps the most famous of all the Greeks' returns. His voyage home became a journey through the realms of gods and monsters, told in the epic Odyssey. For 10 years he wandered, encountering the Cyclops Polyphemus, the enchantress Circe, the deadly sirens, and the wrath of Poseidon himself. His story reflects the moral aftermath of the Trojan War. A man who had survived war's cruelty now had to survive its memory. The gods, angered by deceit and pride, punished him with endless trials. His return to Ithaca was not a triumphant homecoming, but a hard-won reconciliation with his humanity. Odysseus's journey became a reflection of the eternal struggle between cunning and conscience, showing that victory in war often leaves the soul scarred beyond repair. For the Trojans, their legacy did not end in the ashes. Through the figure of Aeneas, their story took on new life. In Roman mythology, as told by Virgil's Aeneid, Aeneas became the bridge between fallen Troy and the future glory of Rome. Carrying his aged father on his shoulders and leading his young son by the hand, Aeneas embodied the perseverance of civilization amidst destruction. His voyage across the Mediterranean, guided by destiny and the will of the gods, led to the founding of the Roman people. Through this tale, the Romans claimed divine ancestry from Troy, linking their empire to the grandeur and tragedy of the Greek heroic age. The myth of the Trojan War thus transcended time and geography, becoming not merely a Greek story, but a cornerstone of Western identity, a myth that explained both the rise and fall of empires.
Beyond mythology, the question of whether the Trojan War truly happened has continued to fascinate scholars, historians, and archaeologists for centuries. For much of history, the war was considered purely a work of poetic imagination, immortalized by Homer and his successors. Yet the 19th century brought a new wave of inquiry, driven by explorers like Heinrich Schliemann. His excavations at Hissarlik uncovered the remnants of a city that had been destroyed by fire around 1200 BCE. Beneath layers of earth, he found evidence of walls, gates, and fortifications that matched the descriptions of Troy in ancient literature. Though Schliemann's methods were crude and often destructive, his discoveries sparked global fascination. Later archaeologists, such as Wilhelm Dorpfeld and Manfred Korfmann, refined the findings, revealing that Troy was not a single city, but a series of settlements built and rebuilt over millennia. One of these, Troy 7, showed signs of siege, destruction, and human tragedy that aligned remarkably with Homeric accounts. Modern archaeology continues to explore this mystery. Artifacts from the regions show connections between the Mycenaean Greeks and the peoples of Anatolia, suggesting trade, diplomacy, and possibly conflict. Linear B tablets from the Greek mainland record names and terms that may relate to Troy or its allies. Evidence points to a world of small kingdoms vying for control over trade routes and coastal territories, a geopolitical environment ripe for the kind of war later mythologized in epic poetry. While the Trojan War, as described by Homer, may not have happened exactly as told, there is growing belief that a real war or series of wars inspired the legend. The line between myth and history, once thought impassable, now appears to blur like the horizon over the Aegean Sea. It is within this uncertain space that the truth behind the Trojan War continues to live. But the power of the Trojan War does not depend solely on whether it truly happened. Its endurance lies in its symbolism. To the ancient Greeks, it represented the eternal cycle of human folly and divine justice, the tension between fate and freedom. It was a moral landscape upon which every virtue and vice played out. The courage of Hector, the pride of Achilles, the cunning of Odysseus, the love of Helen, and the wrath of the gods. To later generations, the story became a mirror for their own struggles. The Renaissance saw artists and scholars rediscover the Trojan narratives, using them to explore questions of honor, love, and destiny. In the modern era, the myth continues to inspire countless works of art, literature, and philosophy. Writers from Shakespeare to Tennyson, from Joyce to Atwood, have reimagined the fall of Troy as a metaphor for human ambition, the futility of war, and the fragility of civilization.
Similarly, the figure of Achilles embodies the paradox of heroism. He is the perfect warrior, strong, fearless, and almost divine, yet he is undone by his own humanity. His wrath destroys enemies and friends alike, and his quest for eternal glory leads to his premature death. The story of his heel, the one vulnerable spot on his otherwise invincible body, has become a universal metaphor for human weakness. Every generation finds in Achilles a reflection of its own contradictions, the pursuit of greatness shadowed by the inevitability of failure. His tale endures because it speaks to the essence of being human, to strive for immortality, knowing all the while that death awaits. In many ways, the Trojan War represents the moment when myth began to evolve into history. The oral traditions that preserved it gave birth to the written word through Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. These works not only defined Greek literature, but also laid the foundation for Western storytelling. Through them, myth became a means of preserving memory, of transforming the chaos of war into narrative order. The Greeks, in turning their collective trauma into poetry, achieved something profound. They turned suffering into meaning. The Trojan War is therefore not just a story about gods and heroes, it is the story of storytelling itself, of humanity's need to make sense of its past through the language of myth. The cultural legacy of the Trojan War extends far beyond literature. In art, sculpture, and drama, it became a central theme that shaped aesthetic ideals for centuries. The tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides revisited its characters to explore moral and emotional depths rarely seen before. The Greeks used these stories to question their own society, to ask what it meant to be just, to be honorable, to be human. Later, during the Roman era, the war's myths were reinterpreted to serve imperial ideals, with Aeneas's journey symbolizing the destiny of Rome itself. In the Middle Ages, the war was woven into chivalric romances, and in the modern world, it continues to echo through film, theater, and literature. Each retelling reshapes the myth, reflecting the values and anxieties of its own time. The war never truly ends. It simply transforms, living on in every culture that retells its story. Beyond art and literature, the Trojan War continues to hold significance in the field of historical and psychological study. It serves as a lens through which we understand human conflict, how pride, fear, and desire can spiral into catastrophe. The myth's enduring relevance lies in its psychological realism. The heroes of Troy, though touched by the divine, are profoundly human. They feel envy, love, rage, and grief. Their gods are not distant ideals, but exaggerated reflections of these emotions, magnified to cosmic scale. In this way, Greek mythology presents an early exploration of the human mind, centuries before psychology existed. The Trojan War in particular becomes a mythic model for every conflict, personal, political, or spiritual, that humanity has faced since. As the centuries passed, the physical city of Troy vanished beneath layers of earth and time, but its spirit remained alive in language and imagination. Travelers sought its ruins, poets sang of its heroes, and philosophers debated its meaning. Even today, the plains of Hissarlik whisper with the ghosts of Homer's verses. The stones unearthed there, charred and broken, remind us that myths often grow from the seeds of truth. Perhaps a real war did rage there, born of trade rivalries or territorial ambition. Perhaps Helen was not a queen, but a symbol, not a person, but an idea. Yet, what matters most is not the literal truth, but the mythic one, the truth that resides in the human heart. The Trojan War endures because it tells us who we are, creatures of reason and passion, builders and destroyers, forever caught between the mortal and the divine.
In the final reckoning, the Trojan War is less a story about victory or defeat than it is about transformation. Every character, every city, every god in the tale undergoes a metamorphosis. The Greeks, who sought to reclaim a stolen queen, lose their innocence. The Trojans, who stood for love and loyalty, lose their home. Even the gods, who ruled from Olympus, reveal their pettiness and limitations. Through their downfall, humanity rises, gaining self-awareness through suffering. The ashes of Troy become the soil from which new civilizations grow, carrying forward the lessons of the past. The myth becomes history, and history becomes myth again, a cycle that continues to this day. Thus, the truth behind the Trojan War is not found in ruins or relics alone, but in its enduring power to speak to the human condition. It is a story that transcends time, culture, and belief. Whether one views it as history embellished by poetry or as myth grounded in memory, its message remains timeless, that pride leads to ruin, love to tragedy, and war to silence. Yet from that silence rises the voice of humanity itself, telling and retelling the story in search of meaning. The Trojan War lives on not because of its battles, but because it captures the eternal struggle between destiny and desire, the same struggle that defines us all.